from Lantern Creek. Today, the round robin I'm going to be bringing to you is autonomous drawing. So, one thing I really love, well, autonomous, first of all, means not without thinking. So it's basically automatic. Try to think as little as possible when you're drawing. That's basically what autonomous drawing means. And what we're going to be doing today with that anonymous drawing, practicing that, is through word association. If you could take a moment to pause the video and divide your paper into 8 squares or rectangles like this. You can do that by folding your paper. I did 1 1/2 this way, 1 1/2 this way, and then 1 1/2 again this way. And then you can use whatever you like to draw your rectangles. You don't have to write down the words. I just did that so in the future, if you misheard me or anything like that, it would just be easier to reference for your convenience. But you don't have to write them down. It's up to you. So why don't we start? I'm super excited for this. This is one of my favorite drawing exercises. You can use whatever you want to draw. I'll just be using just, regular old pencil. Yeah, it's up to you. So let's get started. Okay, first word. What does meal look like? What does meal feel like to you? Just go ahead and get started with whatever drawing utensil you're using. And get drawing. Don't even think about it, just let it happen. Although while you're not supposed to be thinking as much, I think it's still important to be aware of what you're drawing, what kind of shapes you're making, how that link in your mind is being formed between your lines and your mind. How light are you using your pencil? How hard are you using your pencil? Is there a reason to that? There doesn't have to be, but it's important to think about. We don't want to spend too long on these, just a couple of seconds. Just fill up as much or as little as you want of the rectangle. It's just supposed to be a freeing exercise. In this one, I did a lot of circles, I guess. They kind of look like dinner plates. I guess that makes sense. But we can move on. If you want to spend a little bit more time with this one, you can do that. You can come back to it later. But I would like to move on. I feel complete with this one. So our next one, should we go this way? I think that we should, is shock. Shock. Shock is very interesting because it can mean quite a lot of different things to different people. It can mean like a shock of energy, a shock of emotion. You ever hear someone refer to something as a shock of hair? Just basically a really unruly piece of hair, I guess. But just let your pencil or whatever you're using go where it wants. Don't think about it too much, because then it wouldn't be autonomous. It wouldn't be automatic. And that's the goal here, to really just not think much about it at all and just let what happens happens. If you're wondering why we're doing this, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but it is a really great way to kind of loosen up when drawing. I find that I'll freeze up when I'm drawing something or when I'm getting ready to draw something, and it is, scary, the blank page. It really is. And this is just a good way to loosen up and draw without judgment. And I think that's the most important part, is to draw without judgment of yourself or your lines. Whatever lines happen, they happen, and you don't need to change them. You don't need to erase. Next word is electric. I thought this was really fun. When I wrote it down, I put an exclamation point. It just felt necessary. Couldn't tell you why. It just does. So let's start with electric. I wonder how electric feels today. Sometimes, if you want to do this again, you could use the same set of words. You could go out and find your own words. You could have someone else find your words for you. So it's a surprise. But maybe you'll find that on a different day, you'll feel different about some words. Maybe electric doesn't look the same today as it will tomorrow, years from now even. The way that you draw is constantly changing. And I think that's also something really important to note, is that maybe you'll never draw the same thing twice. And that's kind of special, isn't it? Because every drawing you make would be the only one of its kind. I think that I've been using my pencil really harshly. I've been pressing down really hard. So, I would like to encourage you, yes you, to change something about the way that you've been drawing. Think about, once again, what shapes you've been using, how you've been treating your pencil, how heavy are your lines, how light are they? What would happen if you changed one of those things, or all of those things? What happened if you went completely different? I think I'm going to go different for secret. I've done some kind of triangles, but I've never done entirely triangles, or very light triangles either. I think I'm going to go very light for this one, because I have not been going light for the other ones. Another variation on this exercise is the Postit Note variation, where you can use an entire Postit Note, or just break off a little bit of it, just a little chunk of it, and you can use whatever you want to draw, but just draw and draw and draw autonomously if you want. Don't even think about it, just make some lines on the paper. Just draw for every single Post-it note, and don't stop until you've finished with whatever portion of Post-it notes you have. If there's like bleeding through onto the next Post-it note, you can use that. You can use that as the basis for your next drawing. I talk about that because this can be kind of hard to do on the go, autonomous drawings. If you don't carry around a sketchbook, if a sketchbook is too large to just carry around, a Post-it note, or at least part of a Post-it note stack, you can just put in your pocket. You can put a pen in your pocket, and you can just take it wherever you go. And you can listen to people talking and listen to their words and use those as your word prompts. Just some fun things to think about. I know it's not really easy to go outside recently, but you don't even have to go outside. You can listen to your family talking. You can listen to the TV. It's really anywhere words can come from. You have a prompt, you know? You have a prompt that you can work from, that you can draw from. It's really, the world's your oyster when it comes to words, because they're pretty much everywhere. Even if you don't understand them, they still sound like something. They still feel like something. If you don't know what it means, you can make up your own meaning with your lines. You can see how it feels with your lines. Now, joy. What does that feel like? Is it different than happiness? Is it different than excitement? Is it one line, or is it many lines? Are you picking up your pencil at all? Are you using tiny little strokes to create value, which is, light to dark value? That's what value is called. Are you shading right now? Why are you shading? There's not a reason. That's okay. There doesn't have to be a reason. Maybe joy is more physical, and so you want it to look physical. You want it to look like it could exist in this plane, in this dimension. Or is it very abstract, super abstract, just some lines thrown together? Is that joy to you? Is that what it feels like right now? Is that what your hand is doing on the paper? I think joy can be all of those things, if you want them to be. I think the next one we'll do is movement. Now, movement is a very fun topic to talk about with drawing. There's a lot of ways to express movement in drawing, a lot of methods that have been tried over centuries and centuries of artists trying to depict movement when you're working with a really still kind of medium. The drawings on this page aren't gonna get up and walk about, but you can create the illusion that they can, that they are. But what is your hand telling you movement is? Not what your mind is. What's your hand telling you what movement is? Is it literal? Or is it more like more representative? Is it more symbolic? Is it a movement of people, a movement of things? Is it sound waves? These kind of look like sound waves to me. Because there's movement in sound waves. There's movement in almost everything around us. Almost everything is moving at all times. I also think that's important to think about. Is that sometimes if something doesn't look like it's moving, say this jar, for example, its atoms are still moving inside of it. And I think that's interesting. That might not be true, actually. I don't know. But it's still fun to think about. Morning. Now, I said that we wouldn't be thinking at all during this autonomous drawing. And it definitely sounds like I'm thinking because I'm talking to you. But I'm really not thinking about my hand. It's just kind of doing what it wants. And if you do end up thinking during this exercise, if you do end up thinking about what you're going to draw and then you do it, that's okay too. It takes practice to not think. It really is something that, takes time, takes practice sometimes. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect on the first try. You can do this as many times as you want. You really can. There is no limit to how many times you can do this. Like I said, your drawings can come out different every time. They could be the same, but they don't have to be. They can be whatever you want them to be. There are other benefits to this exercise too, other than it, building a kind of trust between you and your hand when you're drawing. It's also quite calming for some. I find it calming. It doesn't have to be serious at all. It can be really silly. It really can. It doesn't have to be abstract. It can be smiley faces, even. I'm going to throw in a smiley face, just to show you that you can throw in a smiley face. That's okay. You can throw in people. You can throw in figures. Just don't think too much about it. Just be non-judgmental. Be non-judgmental of your lines and your drawing and how your hand moves and how you hold your pencil. It's important to be aware, but it's equally important not to be judged. by yourself or anyone else when you're drawing. Because that's how you build trust with yourself and your art. Even if you don't do art all the time and you think, oh, I can never be an artist. If you still want to make art, you can make art. And you don't have to judge yourself while you're doing it. So that's why I like autonomous drawing. It's a judgment-free zone to draw to your heart's content and have fun. I don't know if you had fun. I'm hoping you had fun. I definitely had fun with this. And I'm hoping to see you sometime soon. I hope that you pick up this exercise again, maybe. It's not required, of course. But if it helped, that's good too. I'll be seeing you soon. This is once again Bean from CLC. Goodbye.